Welcome to a Legendarium special about the 5 rivers of the Greek underworld. In this special, we will talk about how the ancient Greeks imagined the land of the dead. Ancient Greeks made sense of death by believing in an afterlife, an underworld which housed the souls of the dead. This world could be accessed from Earth through places like a cavern near the ancient town of Teneris, the bottomless Alconian lake at the city of Lerna, and the volcanic lake Avernus, at least according to Greek myth. A Greek god called Hades ruled over the underworld as his kingdom. It included meadows, aphtol flowers, fruit trees, and other geographic features like those found on Earth. Among the most famous are the 5 rivers of the underworld. Each had a unique function in the underworld and reflected a particular emotion or god associated with death. Each fed from a swamp called Acheron. The best known is the first, the river Styx, which circles the underworld 7 times, separating it from the land of the living. The Styx flowed out of Oceanus, the great river of the world, which the Greeks believed included both the Atlantic and the Mediterranean. In Greek, the word Styx means to hate or abhor, and it was named after a nymph daughter of the Titans Oceanus and Thetis. She lived at the entrance of Hades in a lofty grotto supported by silver columns. The Styx is where Achilles' mother Thetis is said to have dipped him to make him immortal. Of course, she famously forgot one of his heels. Cerberus, a dog with multiple heads and the tail of a serpent, waited on the further side of the Styx where Acheron landed with the shades of the departed in his boat. Transport depended upon payment, so during funeral rites, mourners left coins in the eyes or in the mouth of the deceased. Homer called the Styx the Dread River of Oath, for Zeus used a golden jug of water from the Styx to settle disputes among the gods. If a god swore falsely by the water, he would be deprived of nectar and ambrosia for a year and banished from Olympus for 9 years. Second came the river Lethe, the river of oblivion or forgetfulness. Upon entering the underworld, the dead drank from the Lethe to forget their earthly existence. Lethe is also the name of the goddess of forgetfulness, a daughter of Eris who watches over the river Lethe. In the Greek underworld, the river Lethe also flows across the appropriately named plain of Lethe. It also passed around the cave of Hypnos, and thus the river became closely associated with that Greek underworld god. Some tomb inscriptions even claimed the dead could keep their earthly memories by avoiding the Lethe completely and instead drinking from a stream that flowed from the lake of Mnemosyne, the goddess of memory. Third came the river Acheron, or River of Woe. In some tales, it is the principal river of the underworld displacing the Styx, so in those tales, the ferryman Charon takes the dead across the Acheron to move them from the upper to the lower world. It is worth noting that since no mortal ever returned to tell people what the underworld was like, people could reimagine it as they chose. And there are several other rivers in the upper and lower world said to be named Acheron. The best known of these is the mythic river Thesprotia, said to flow through deep gorges in a wild landscape, occasionally disappearing underground and passing through a marshy lake before supposedly emerging into the Ionian Sea. According to Greek myth, it had an oracle of the dead beside it. In his play Frogs, the comic playwright Aristophanes has a character curse a villain by saying, "And the crag of Acheron dripping with gore can hold you." Plato described Acheron as the lake to the shores of which the souls of the many go when they are dead, and after waiting an appointed time, which is to some a longer and to some a shorter time, they are sent back again to be born as animals. This is one of the few references to reincarnation in Greek myth. The fourth river is the Phlegethon, called the River of Fire because it is said to travel to the depths of the underworld, a land filled with fire made by funeral pyres. The river Phlegethon leads to Tartarus, which is where the dead are judged and where one finds the prison of the Titans, whom Zeus vanquished. One version of the Persephone story has her eating the pomegranate seeds, being reported to Hades by Ascophalos, a son of Acheron by an underworld nymph. For revenge, Persephone sprinkled him with water from the Phlegethon to transform him into a screech owl. When Aeneas ventures into the underworld in the Aeneid, Virgil described the fiery surroundings, with treble walls, which Phlegethon surrounds, whose fiery flood the burning empire bounds. Plato also mentions it as the source of volcanic eruptions, writing, "Streams of lava which spout up at various places on earth are offshoots from it." Some Greeks believed that condemned sinners in Tartarus would be tortured in the boiling waters of Phlegethon. Fifthly, and finally, is Cocytus, called the River of Wailing. It is a river of cries and lamentation for the souls that Charon refused to ferry over, since they had not received a proper burial, would find their wandering grounds there. In his geography, Pausanias believed that Homer named the Cocytus after a series of rivers in Thesprotia, which he described as a most unlovely stream, and found the area so miserable he named the deepest rivers in Hades after them. That wraps things up for this episode of the Legendarium. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, press like. If you want to see more, press subscribe. And if you've got anything to say, let me know in the comments section. Thanks again for joining me, and I hope that you have a great rest of the day.